It began as a small project with 12 staff. Not many were sure what to expect or knew what television broadcasting was about. To introduce television to Papua New Guineans in the early days of the station's advent, when the push was to get ordinary people to identify with it, improvised public television sets were set up at public markets in and around Port Moresby. In July 1987, in this apartment at the top floor of Garden City, they switched on the broadcast signal and MTV went live on air. The first program that went on air was Kids Corner.
There was about 12 months to 6 months work put in before us for our first broadcast. But at that time, we were approaching the date that had been earmarked. We realised that the studio wasn't going to be ready, so this Garden City studio was not completed. So they set up in the apartments upstairs. One of the bedrooms was used as a news desk, the other bedroom was used as a kids' corner set, and the lounge room was the control room. And the news was put together at the 6 Mile office, and at the end of the editing session, the video editors would have to rush from 6 Mile to Barocco, delivering the tapes to get the news to air by 6 o'clock at night, and sometimes we really cut it fine.
Augustine Kelly has been with MTV since day one. The veteran cameraman has seen the changes of technology over 3 decades, from the old VHS tapes he started with to digital video cameras, to seamless workflows that ride on the ever-evolving ICT infrastructure of the 21st century.
It has changed rapidly, but during the 80s it was a bit slow. But when it comes to the 2000, it just doubled up, and it's doubled up, in a way that if you missed 5 years, you miss out.
One of the benefits of having a television station operate for 30 years is the amount of history that is held in the archives. MTV has in its possession an archive that contains snippets of 3/4 of Papua New Guinea's post-independence history, including important milestones. The highs came with the lows. MTV began broadcasting when the Papua New Guinea Defence Force started fighting what would become a 10-year war on Bougainville. MTV news crews were sometimes embedded with the PNG Defence Force. We were there when the peace negotiations were conducted and when Sir Michael Somare negotiated the release of soldiers held hostage on Bougainville. 10 years later, in 1997, Papua New Guinea was at a crossroad in its history. Brigadier General Jerry Singarok commandeered the NBC headquarters in Port Moresby and called for the resignation of then Prime Minister Sir Julius Chan. The Chan government had authorized the use of South African mercenaries on Bougainville. MTV news crew members, who were relatively young and inexperienced, captured the events that were later going to be set in PNG's political and military history. A year after the Sandline crisis, PNG was hit by tsunami in the cover of darkness. Aitape in Sandown Province was on the map of meteorologists monitoring earthquakes and tsunamis on the 17th of July 1998. More than 2,000 people were killed and thousands more were relocated. MTV captured scenes from the chopper and on the ground a day after. But MTV was also there to capture the happy moments in history, including the visit by one of the most influential world leaders of his time, the late Pope John Paul II. He had visited earlier in 1984 and again in 1995. MTV has been an influential source for the sports hungry, feeding Papua New Guinea's addiction for rugby league. Over 30 years, it has been the official broadcaster for the NRL and State of Origin. On the one hand, MTV fed the fanaticism for rugby league. On the other, the fanaticism for elections and politics. We've taken viewers to places they would not normally go, to Independence Hill, inside Parliament during vote of no confidence motions and the formation of governments. 30 years on, The technology has changed dramatically as another generation of journalists, producers and broadcasters take on the new challenges and keep up with the changing media landscape. MTV is part of PNG's history and will continue doing so in the years ahead. For more than 2 million people, MTV News became a primary source for television news. Various personalities became household names.
EMTV News, that's who.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good afternoon, I'm Jerry Ginoa.
And I'm Jacqueline Tarwe.
National election to Papua New Guinea is a high moment for Papua New Guinea. The election of representatives
1990.
In their respective provinces. John Higgins, National MTV News. I'm going to do one more. I made a mistake there.
Count me down.
Police have shot one Rigo fellow dead and a samurai bloke is... It is believed that the culprits, before escaping, washed their hands in the pool, leaving blood stains, and a security believed... It is believed that the culprits, before escaping, washed their hands in the pool, leaving blood stains, and a walkie-talkie...
One more. Last one. Todagia Kalola, National MTV News.
In Manus, Titi Gabi, National MTV News. Should be right. Let's go.
And I'm Serah Aupong, National MTV News.